Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.
Well, welcome to the K-Files. Who are you?
I know.
Who are you?
I'm your special guest today.
Well, I would say special because you know you haven't shown up since Lord knows when. When did you leave me?
August.
You left in August and hasn't come back.
I've been slightly busy since then.
You're teaching kids.
How
to do what?
I'm teaching college students.
I know, but I call them kids.
Well, actually, you know what I do too sometimes.
I call them kids. The kids here, I call them kids.
I am teaching them how to write. I am teaching them a critical thinking class, and I'm teaching two critical thinking classes and 2 cultural studies classes where I teach kids the value of comic books.
Well, I'm glad that you teach them critical thinking because the kids, a lot of the kids I run into now, boy, oh boy.
Sandra, a lot of adults I run into don't know how to think.
And that's the truth. I don't deny that one bit.
I got the official word this week. I will be starting teaching here at Wesleyan.
Yay.
In January. Yeah, so busy schedule.
You are busy.
Yep, absolutely.
But you're doing something that you have wanted to do, and that's so important. It's just very important that you are happy doing something you want to do, and I always say that.
Yeah, so, I've got 3 careers, and I like all 3 of them. So.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, 3 jobs. I was trying to figure out which job to quit, but they're all so easy. It's kind of hard to, how do you quit an easy job?
True.
And when you do something that you like, it's always easy, right?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right.
All right,
what are we talking about this morning?
All right, I am here today because it's Veterans Day, so I'm not teaching. That was one of the problems. My teaching schedule conflicted with when the episode is filmed. So anyway, it's Veterans Day, and I wanted to talk about something that we talked about last Veterans Day.
Okay.
And I think we should talk about every Veterans Day until something happens.
Until something happens.
And that is Clarence Earl Jenkins. He was an Army sergeant in his younger days.
I remember that, yeah.
I've been in contact with his family for years now. His 2 sisters, one lives in Virginia, one lives here. His mother has passed away. In 2006, he lived in Brithaven, which is a assisted living facility on Western Boulevard in Tarboro.
Yes.
Right. He was 48 years old. Right. So I am 48 years old. I had a birthday in May. So Brithaven has older people in it, but it also has people with health problems.
Okay.
And that's what Mr. Jenkins was, right? I hope 48's not old enough to go into the nursing home, but he had some big-time kidney problems. So he was living there because they helped him get to his dialysis appointments. They helped him with, he had a lot of health problems.
Wow.
But He wasn't. I mean, he wasn't a prisoner there. He could come and go as he wanted to. He was paying a lot of money for it, right? So,
sure.
On March 12th, 2006, he left Brithaven, as he did a lot. So I mean, it attracted no attention when he signed himself out and left, and he went for a walk like he always did, and he was seen walking that day by several people. Right, multiple people saw him walking that day, talked to him, spoke to him, including a police officer who saw him that day and asked him how he was doing. Well, but after 3 o'clock, nobody saw him after that. Right, so a ton of people. I spent a lot of time in Tarboro. I used to write for the Tarboro paper there. Spent a lot of time working on this case. I probably put more time into this case than almost all the other cases I've worked on.
Wow.
I talked to just about everybody who saw him that day. There were no apparent problems. I mean, it wasn't like he was stressed out or worried about anything. He was seen by a lot of people, but then after 3 o'clock, it's like he dropped off the face of the earth, right?
Wow.
Family members have told me over and over again that at this point they just want his body back.
Yeah, because if it was caused by, if he just collapsed because he was very sick, if he just collapsed, then he would be somewhere. You would have found him.
You would think so. You would, yeah.
It's got to be foul play.
It's just like one of the first cases, I think it was the first case we ever talked about on this show when it started, was the Carl Butler case here in Rocky Mount.
Yes.
Investigators are of different opinions of what happened to Mr. Butler. Either his skeleton's in a ditch somewhere over in that area of Rocky Mount, or he's living in Texas or Virginia, depending on who you ask. So,
right.
However, I don't think there's any question about the outcome for Mr. Jenkins. He's gone, but the question is whether he's out there somewhere and we just haven't found him yet, or whether somebody disappeared him. Right? So
yes,
we just don't know. There's no clues. His dialysis bag with some equipment in it and whatnot, and his ID card were found in some woods, but we don't know whether that was thrown in the woods or I mean, there's just no evidence in this case. We don't know whether that. I mean, there's a pond out there too. I've been out there many times. There's a pond out there. Maybe he's in the pond. I mean, this is a straight up mystery. A lot of times with these unidentified bodies, they're never. A lot of them aren't really mysteries. Are these missing people? They're not really mysteries. Law enforcement knows what happened to an extent, but they just can't prove what happened.
Right.
But in this case, it's a true mystery there in Tarboro, what happened to Mr. Jenkins.
Well, you know the number, 406-6736. If anybody knows anything about Clarence Jenkins,
right,
in Tarboro, left Brithaven, not to be seen again.
Yeah, he
on
was.
What day?
That was on, scroll back down, March 12th, 2006.
March 12th, 2006.
And, it's something fascinating I found that I wish was still the case, but it's not. Back then, the Amtrak would stop in Tarboro and pick people up and take them to Raleigh and whatnot. And some people thought maybe, because he had done that before, that maybe he got on the train, but there's no evidence that he got on the train. So, I mean, I have, believe me, I have looked at this case every which way that you can go. Mr. Jenkins, when he vanished, was 5 feet 2 inches tall. He weighed 135 pounds. So, I mean, you can tell he was
a small man.
Yeah, a
small man.
He had black hair, black eyes. He was missing some teeth. He had scars on his face. He had surgical scars on his right hip where they put in the catheter stuff and all that a couple times. He had scars on his belly and his chest from operations that he had. He had a kidney dialysis stent inserted into his chest and a metal pin in his right leg. So, I mean, when they find this body, they're going to be able to figure out if it's him really quickly.
Yes.
something we're going to talk about later in the show. Remember the body that they found back in August over here by the community college campus?
Yes.
You know, there was, when that body was found, there was a couple law enforcement agencies that showed up to look at certain aspects of that.
Right.
You know, to see did he have a metal cap? Did he have a metal plate in his head? You know, the easy identifiers to tell right away if this,
there are
that person.
markers that really will.
So I think when we find a body in Tarboro and he's got a kidney stent in,
yes,
we can certainly look in that direction. So let me see. He was wearing a gray T-shirt, a blue hooded sweater like this one right here, blue jeans. His nickname was Shorty. He was a U.S. Army veteran. He had friends in Fayetteville, Virginia Beach, right? Norfolk. All of that has been checked. I mean, he didn't go to any friend's house. You know, he didn't travel out of town. There's no indication that he went anywhere. I talked to the police chief down there, Chief Webb, really smart guy, really, very educated, very
I like him a lot.
And he was, been there a long time too, so he was probably there at that time. No clue. I mean, just no clue what happened to Mr. Jenkins. Wow. He's just one of the many people who just get up and disappear. You know, we've talked about a lot on this show. We talked about Daniel Moses up in Rich Square, who disappeared and left his stove running and his air conditioner unit and all that. He just disappeared. So there is DNA in the case, right? So they've got DNA for Mr. Jenkins, and it's been entered into several databases, which we're going to talk about later too. The importance of that,
right?
And I don't know. These cases we talked about before, how these cases are by the time that we're talking about them, if they were easy to solve, they would have been solved a long time.
That's why they're here.
Right. That's exactly right.
We need your help.
And this is one of those cases where I think it's going to take somebody to finally break down and say, I remember that day.
Sure.
So and so, this happened or that happened.
But don't forget, we have a reward up to $15,000, folks. And it's anonymous. It can be you can get a nice little amount of cash. 406-6736 is the hotline number if you know anything. We pay quickly.
Yeah, and the family's really hurting. They were a close family. Obviously as they got older, as families do, they live in different places and everything. But his sister from Virginia, she contacts me every 3 or 4 days, and always has for 5 years or more.
Wow.
Have you heard any more about my brother? Have you heard any more about my brother? So, this is a family that's hurting, and undeservedly so.
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins was not that there's ever any excuse for anything that happens to anybody, but Mr. Jenkins was not involved in anything. He was not involved in drugs. He was not a drinker. He was not involved in, he couldn't drink, his kidneys were shot.
Right, that's right.
He was not involved in anything. This is a poor old man who went for old man, listen to me. He was my age.
Right.
This is a guy who went for a walk.
Right.
Saw a lot of people, and then either some tragedy of some form or another befell him. And now he's just gone. And he's left a big hole in his family.
Right.
And,
Well, the family needs closure, folks. So, again, if you know anything, no tip is too small.
That's right.
They're interested in anything that you can give them. If you did happen to see him, please contact this number. Okay, well, that's all for that case. We'll be right back with you with some weather, and then we're going to talk about which case?
We're going to talk about baby John Nash.
And I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time. We've talked about it a long time ago, but it's time to revisit that case. So anyway, we'll be right back with you.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.
Okay, welcome back to the K-Files. And if you just tuned in, well, yes, you do recognize the fellow that's sitting beside me, Mr. Lindell K., professor,
Yes.
cold case expert,
Loving father, chicken herder.
and then I have some names I can't say on TV, so we won't do that.
That's true. I've been called much worse by better people.
Shut up.
All right, so I have, for almost 22 years now, I have investigated and written about murder cases, right?
Right.
The worst cases are always baby cases, right? Always.
Yes.
I've written, I mean, I can't even count how many cases I've written about fathers. A lot of, so, you know, I worked down in Jacksonville during the whole Gulf War thing in the aftermath.
Right.
And there were a lot of guys coming back from the war that were trying to adjust, right? And they really couldn't. And they would, unfortunately, I mean, there were a lot of babies that got shaken to death. They got, you know, smothered to death. I mean, it was just a terrible situation. And, you know, the thing, I thought that after dealing with all of that it couldn't be worse. But then, you know, we started this project to write about all the unidentified bodies in North Carolina this year. And I'm only about a quarter of the way through the 120 bodies that we have in North Carolina that nobody knows who they are. And that includes three babies, right?
Yes.
That have some things in common. All three babies were found in the trash, right? One in the Outer Banks and then two right here in the Twin Counties. At Nag's Head, there was a baby found under a trash can 30 years ago. I don't really have a picture of it, so I throwed that up so people can try to see what we're talking about.
Right.
The baby had been beaten in the face, and it had been smothered. And so the medical examiner said that it died of blunt force trauma and asphyxiation, right?
Shame.
The medical examiners were unable to determine the baby's gender because it was so severely decomposed. This was April 4th, 1991.
You know, there is a place in hell for people like that.
Right. Dante said there's, I think, seven circles of hell. They certainly belong at the bottom. On February 25th, 1994, at the Edgecombe County landfill in Pine Tops, a sanitation worker came to work, and he thought that there was a plastic bag with a baby doll in it. And when he got to looking at it, the baby doll was actually the body of a newborn. The cause of death in that is not known. Brittany, put that up for a second. Yeah, the Telegram article ran. That's from 1994 that I got off microfilm at the library. They don't know what the cause of death is in that baby's case, right? They just know. I mean, they really don't have much of a clue. The only real clue that they have is that witnesses saw a woman drive up, and a woman in a blue car drove up to the dumpster at Edgecombe Community College the day before the baby was found, and she was acting erratic, and she was looking in the dumpster and around the dumpster. And people remember because it was raining pretty hard, and they're like, why is this woman out in the rain?
Yeah, really.
You know? But that's about the only clue that they have. The baby was white, possibly Hispanic or mixed race. Once again, the gender's not known because it was so decomposed that they don't know. That baby was 21 inches long. It weighed 7 pounds. It was well nourished with black hair and brown eyes. So it was born healthy, right? Unfortunately, through a couple different circumstances, including Hurricane Floyd, is that the one in '99?
Yeah.
DNA is not available in this case, right?
Wow.
So the only way, there's no physical evidence.
Yeah.
So the only way that that case is going to get solved is through what we're doing here,
Right.
or what other media does, you know. And there's also the NamUs system, which we'll get into a minute, right? So those are the only ways that that case is going to get solved, right?
Right.
Okay, so then we go February 7th, 2007. A homeless man's looking for food in the dumpster behind Food Line, out there on
River's
West
Edge.
That's right, on Harbor West Drive. And he found baby John Nash's little body, weighed 7 pounds, in a Cheetos bucket.
God,
right here's the
dang.
Cheetos bucket. That picture is courtesy of Fighting Crime. She's done a lot of work on this case, and she's the one that came up with that picture first. The day-old infant had been strangled with an elastic hairband. That I revealed that information in a story earlier this year. So it wasn't a child that died somehow in labor and they panicked and didn't know what to do with it, right? I mean, this child was murdered, right? He was strangled to death with a hairband and then thrown in the trash. Again, and the homeless man picked this body up thinking it was a baby doll, and it was not. It was a dead baby. So okay, so there is DNA. From what I understand, there's DNA in this case.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so there's one other baby I want to talk about for a second we'll get back to baby John Nash. On March 3rd, 1999, the body of a day-old baby was found in a plastic bag near some trash in Cumberland County. Right? So baby's thrown in the trash. Last year, detectives used DNA technology and some help that we'll talk about, and everything we'll talk about in a minute. They identified a 54-year-old woman as the mother and the suspect in the baby's death, right? She's been charged with first-degree murder, and she's waiting trial down there in Fayetteville, right? So we know that DNA works in these cases, right? And I'll tell you exactly how they work, but first we got to look at a couple problems in the baby John Nash case, right?
Okay.
Both the Fayetteville case, which was solved before I started this, right? So the Fayetteville case, the Edgecombe County case, right? Okay. And the Nags Head case.
Right.
They're all entered into the NamUs system, right? NamUs is the National Missing Persons and Unidentified System.
You talked about that one day in detail.
It is,
and we need to remind people about that.
If you have a missing loved one, or you know someone who's missing, or you just want to look at it to see how you can help, you can go on to the NamUs website, and thousands and thousands of missing persons and unidentified people are in the NamUs system, where you can go in there and you can get details, and it's a good resource for law enforcement, because they can, there's different levels of it. There's a public level that we can look at that has a lot of information, but there's also a level for law enforcement that only they have access to, that has these DNA profiles and all that they can look at and try to eliminate their missing persons or their unidentified body cases, right? Okay, so the Edgecombe County baby is in NamUs, even though there's no DNA. At least the information is out there on a national level, where people can look. Let's say there's a family member that wonders, I wonder why cousin married, what happened to her, she was pregnant and then she's not, what happened? And then, maybe they can stumble across the truth. There is, with the Nags Head baby, there was DNA, and we'll talk about that. But baby John Nash, even though NamUs has been around since 2007, baby John Nash is not in the NamUs system.
Wow.
And I struggle to understand why. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's the law now, right? If you, the law, state law, North Carolina General Statute 143B, right, says that an unidentified person has not been identified more than 30 days following the person's death, a law enforcement agency shall enter the information into the NamUs system. That law was passed in 2019. Now, it's not retroactive, meaning that there's no requirement that there's no law requiring baby John Nash be entered into the NamUs system.
Right, but still.
But why not?
Why not?
Why not? In Nash County, there are 5 cases, 1, 2, 3, 4. I looked this up this morning to make sure I had the most recent accurate information. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 cases from Nash County in the NamUs system right now, right? The cases range from 1986, 1982, 1980, 1978, and 1978. We've talked about a few of these on the show in the unidentified segments. The man that was found in the water, a couple other cases like that. No baby John Nash. And baby cases are a particular thing that people spend extra time on.
Sure.
And I think that if the case was in NamUs, there would be extra eyes on it.
Absolutely, I think so too.
All right, so NamUs gets cases in the national spotlight, and it offers resources to law enforcement.
Right. Also,
on a side note, NamUs used to be headquartered down in Texas. It recently moved. This year, it moved to the Research Triangle.
Wow.
Right? So I mean, it's local, more or less.
Well, now that's a good question to ask Lieutenant Seifman next week.
That's why I'm teeing you up.
I'm going to.
All right. Well, there's more. There's more.
Okay. We're not finished.
Yeah, let's finish it out. After I wrote about baby John Nash in April, it was the very first case that I wrote about for Unidentified. And the first case we talked about on this show in April about Unidentified.
Right.
A forensic genealogist who has solved at least 3 cases this year, right? Leslie Kaufman, she works with a group called North Carolina Unidentified Project or North Carolina Cold Case Project, something like that, initiative, whatever, right? She works with Ann Ross, who is a forensic anthropologist.
Okay.
And they volunteer their time to help law enforcement identify missing people or unidentified bodies and link them to missing people. They've had success in a Hornet County case where they identified a guy from Ohio. They've had success in a Durham case where a woman walked away from her house and they found her. I mean, the body, she walked away from her house in Raleigh and they found a body 6 miles away in Durham. But since it was different jurisdictions,
right,
back in the day, nobody really kind of talked to each other about it. But they helped solve that case through DNA. And forensic genealogy, for people who don't know, and I didn't know until Leslie explained it to me, what they do is they take DNA from a victim and then they work up a profile, or they get the profile, and then they begin to search online databases for something that matches that profile. So they search Ancestry.com, 1, 2, and 3, and Me.com. All these sites where people want to find out that their grandpa was a rich guy in the 1700s or whatever. So when they put their DNA on there, they click a box that allows people to search that. And the great thing about forensic genealogy is you don't have to hit the missing person or the killer first, because all you need is a familiar connection, a family connection, and then you can start to drill down to other people. It's how they caught the Golden State Killer a guy that had raped and murdered dozens of people in California in the 70s, got away with it all these years, and then they did a forensic genealogy on him, and turns out he was a retired cop in Florida.
Wow.
Right? So the thing is that this works. And it's a new field in North Carolina this year. Leslie's done at least 3 cases, and there's a 4th one that we're going to talk about in a second that was solved through forensic genealogy with someone that she's associated with.
Wow.
So, right, a whole lot better success rate than I'm having, right? A whole lot better success rate than law enforcement's having with these unidentified bodies. So Leslie contacted me in April and said, listen, I want to do that baby case. So I put her in contact with Rocky Mount Police Department. And like with the reward system, once it becomes a part of the investigation, I'm out of it.
Right, sure.
I'm not mixed up in investigations.
Right.
I write stories.
Right.
Right. I'm a journalist. I'm not a detective. Right. I write stories. So I connected Leslie with the Rocky Mount Police Department, the right people. Nothing's happened. For whatever reason, nothing's happened.
Wow.
Why they don't want her help, I can't tell you. I don't understand.
It looks like authorities would want any help they can get.
And she has a tremendous track record.
Golly.
And it's free. Right? All right, so Leslie works with Othram Lab, which is the first private DNA lab in the United States, right? It's down in Texas.
Right.
Okay. So the baby in Nag's Head that we talked about to start this whole thing off, right? The police there accepted Othram's help, and detectives sent one of the baby's ribs to Othram for analysis and to find out what happened. So the lab took DNA from the bone, from the rib.
Right.
They got DNA from that, and they created a genealogical profile, and forensic genealogists searched that, and it linked back to Scott Gordon Poole and Robin Lynn Byram, and they were arrested a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my word.
So, you can tell she's kind of upset about it. So they face a felony charge of concealing the birth of a child, but more charges are on the way as the investigation unfolds.
Wow.
The DNA test, remember we said they didn't know what the gender of the baby was.
Yeah.
The DNA test came back that it was a boy, and it confirmed that Poole and Byram are the parents, right? In 1991, when the baby was dumped, Mr. Poole was 24 and Byram was 21. So, young couple, new baby, they were leaving Nag's Head. That's oftentimes when it happens to a child. I really hope that the local police here accept Leslie's help. And it might be the only chance that we have to figure out who baby John Nash is.
Absolutely.
When we talked about it's not the law. I mean, the law clearly states, and I want to go over this again so there's no confusion. North Carolina General Statute 143B was passed in 2009.
Okay.
Makes it state law that any unidentified body be submitted by law enforcement to NamUs within 30 days.
Wow. Well, it's
30
and
days.
It's not in there.
Right, 30 days. Now hold on. 30 days after they find a body, by law, they have to submit that information. If they haven't identified the body in 30 days, they have to submit that information to NamUs, right? Okay, it's not retroactive, so there's no law requiring baby John Nash to be in the system for NamUs, right?
Okay.
I don't think, there's no reason it's not.
Right.
But there's no reason that there's no law demanding
But
that
it could
be.
help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we talked about that body that was found in August, a couple blocks from the community college.
Right.
Right. On let me see. I got Sunset Avenue. Mm-hmm. Right. That was in late August, right? That body's not in the NamUs system. So either it's been identified and law enforcement hasn't told the public yet, or it's not been identified and the law's not being complied with.
Wow.
So, I don't know which, but these databases are there to help.
Right, absolutely.
And they do help, right?
And it's not getting solved. I mean, you need to reach out to, you need to use any avenue that you possibly can.
Yes, absolutely. I should have looked this up already, but let me see how fast I can do it. Not very fast. NamUs has solved hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of missing persons cases. It's effective, right? And it's so effective that our legislature, who can't agree on anything,
Right.
agreed to make this a law.
Wow.
So it really needs to be followed, and unidentified persons after 30 days of being found should be in the NamUs system. That was August. This is November.
Right.
Plus baby John Nash should be in there.
Yeah, it should be in there, absolutely.
I mean, there's no reason for it not to be. And so not only is there no reason for baby John Nash not to be in NamUs, right? There's every reason that it should be in NamUs.
Right.
Right? So that's what in my critical thinking class that we analyze a lot with the students is it's the twofold, that not only should it not be in there, I can only imagine who that is. Not only should it, there's no reason it shouldn't be in NamUs.
It's called spam.
Right. There's no reason it shouldn't be in NamUs, but there's every reason that it should be in NamUs.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I'm hoping that that's what happens. If it was an oversight or whatever, fine. But now we need to get that done.
Absolutely.
There have been, I know of at least 3 people that have told me that they've contacted law enforcement offering to pay whatever amount of money needs to be paid to get this baby's DNA out into the world, and apparently it hasn't happened yet.
Wow. Well, it needs to be solved. It's and not that the person not that the baby's parent or parents care or want it to be solved, but it needs to be solved.
Fighting Crime just sent me a text message and corrected me on something. That body was found in April, not August. I don't know, so I got that mixed up. So that's even longer.
Yes.
Right. So we're not talking about a few months. We're talking about where did I get? Oh, it does say April right there. So apparently I can't read.
Okay.
So the body was found in April.
April.
Not August. So I mean, May, June, July,
Right.
August, September, October,
Right.
November. I mean, we're 7 months into this case, and by law it should be in NamUs.
Oh.
Now, sometimes the medical examiner enters these cases. Sometimes
I was going to
local
say,
law enforcement.
so law enforcement is ultimately responsible for that?
Well, yeah. Prior to that law, usually the medical examiner took responsibility.
So now
and out of those 120 bodies, a lot of them were entered by medical examiner because law enforcement just didn't get we're talking about migrant workers and other people outside the society that there's no pressure to solve these cases.
Right.
The medical examiner would take the initiative to do that.
Right.
But the law clearly states that it's the investigating agency's responsibility.
Okay. Well, that's what the law says.
And it also says that the one other thing I want to read off of it is it says law enforcement agency may enter information from a missing persons report or about an unidentified body into NamUs at any time. Right? So, I mean, there's no, and then the second one says that a law enforcement agency shall enter information from a missing persons report or about an unidentified person into NamUs if any of the following circumstances. And missing person has been missing more than 30 days. An unidentified person has not been identified for more than 30 days following the person's death. And a missing child has been missing for more than 30 days. So, I mean, there's really no, do we even want to broach the question of how many missing people are not in NamUs that's been missing for more than 30 days?
That's another whole issue.
It's the law. It's the state law. I didn't make it up. Folks don't shoot the messenger here.
Right. I mean,
20 years I've been a reporter. I'm used to people being mad at me about it.
Yeah, but it's a law.
It's the law.
It absolutely is. Okay.
Well, I've had a great time, Sandra. How about you?
I'm so glad. I have, and glad to have you back today, Lyndall, and hope to have you.
I hope to come back. Yes, absolutely. I appreciate you continuing the fight without me. I watched the show. You do a great job. JP's done a great job. I appreciate JP standing in. He's a stand-up guy.
Yes,
absolutely. He's a good dude, and he's doing great.
Yes.
And JP is what a lot of people don't know about him. He likes to have fun. I've heard some wild stories from his highway trooper days. He's a prankster.
Oh yeah.
So maybe he'll get around to doing that to you one day.
No,
I'd like to see.
Not. I was going to say just
I'd like to see that.
Any on me. So anyway, we'll have him back next week, and we'll talk about maybe having you back some in December when you're not teaching.
Absolutely.
Anyway, glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Make it a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching the K-Files.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.